Gress.
Good evening and welcome to the August 22nd Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Nice to be here with everyone. We'll start off with a roll call, please.
Chair Greenfield,
Here.
Vice Chair Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Cribbs,
Here.
Commissioner Freeman,
Here.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes.
Commissioner Oche,
Here, board virtual.
Vice Mayor Stone.
Here.
Chair, that's 6 present.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to an item not on the agenda this evening? If so, please raise your hand if you're joining us remotely via Zoom, or turn in the speaker card if you're here with us.
I'm seeing no hands raised, Chair.
Yes. No one at this time. Thank you. Then we will proceed with the agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Does anyone have anything to suggest this evening? If that's the case, then we will proceed. Sorry?
Is this about the minutes?
No, this is
Oh, sorry.
agenda changes.
Agendas.
additions.
I thought I heard minutes. Thank you.
Stay tuned, please.
I will.
Next up is the approval of the minutes. These are the draft minutes from the June 27th meeting, which is our most recent meeting. Does anyone have any comments or change recommendations regarding the minutes?
Please.
Commissioner Cribbs.
Thank you very much. I don't know what this is, a bike blender on page 7 in the Safe Routes to School report. And I didn't know whether it was a term of art or whether it was a misspelling or something. So if anybody doesn't know what a bike blender is, if there's nothing such a thing, then
I understood it as one of those like smoothie, like bike things. That,
really?
yeah, that's how I understood it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a bicycle powered kitchen appliance equivalent. So rather than using electricity to spin your blender.
Okay,
Someone's
so that
pedaling
would be
quickly.
like the bicycles in Africa that pedal and clean water?
Sure.
Okay, I'll take it. I think it probably doesn't need to be discussed any further, but I do have a serious suggestion for the end of the minutes, if I might. When we get to the reports from the different committees and the ad hocs, sometimes when you're reading the last couple of pages, the reports all run together. So it would be great if we could say, for instance, Goff, Commissioner Freeman, and then it says a sentence about Goff or something along those lines. Yeah, I think it would be a little less confusing. I tried to kind of go through that, so that's it, Chair.
That's a helpful recommendation. Is that something the staff thinks it can be conveyed to the group that's preparing the minutes?
Yeah, I think even during the meeting, we could just do a little, if you wouldn't mind, Javad, just saying as each ad hoc or liaison goes, you could just do a little marker verbally during the meeting. Does that work for everyone?
Sure. That sounds like a great solution. Ann. Yep, thank you. Others?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
And a second, please.
Second,
Thank you. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Greenfield,
I'm going to abstain since I was not at the meeting.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Cribbs,
yes?
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes.
Commissioner Oche.
Yes, please.
Chair, that's a 5-0 vote with 1 abstained.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the department report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Darren Anderson with Community Services Department. Start with recruitment. We will be conducting final interviews for our 2 assistant park ranger positions at the end of this month. Really excited to be hiring for those 2 spots. Definitely need them. We're also conducting first interviews for the division manager of open space, parks and golf at the end of this month. I want to thank the vice chair for sitting in on those, on the panel, the hiring panel for that. Really appreciate it. Some information and statistics from our summer camps for the community services department. In 2023, our revenue, our maximum number of campers, that's the total number of available camper spots. And then the number of campers that were enrolled were all higher than previous years, which is a great accomplishment. However, the number of camps offered in 2023 was less than the previous 2 years. And that's mainly because the virtual camps that we had hosted in 2022 were discontinued this year. And another reason is that staff combined camps that had lower enrollment with others to make them fuller classes or camps. Unfortunately, our wait list is also higher than previous years. Demand was just higher than we can accommodate. But rec staff explained to me that some of the numbers are from duplicate entries. And by that, they mean that lots of families sign up their kids for multiple camps at the same time. So they'll get into one and be holding 4 other camps and then ultimately decide not to do those. And it goes onto the statistic of a wait list for 4 of those. So not all of them are people that didn't get into a camp. Sometimes they're in that situation. However, I also heard from rec staff that if they had more space, they could offer more camps. And so they are going to try to partner with PUSD to see if we can get some additional space and allow a few more and hopefully get that wait list down next year. The Twilight Summer concert series this summer, I believe, is wrapped up. And that note there is missing the critical information, but I believe that is now complete. The family movie night, we've got our last family movie night starting this Friday, August 25th at Mitchell Park, and they'll be showing Super Mario, and the movie starts at sunset and will be free. I skipped one. There's also a Moonlight Run event this year. The event will be held on Friday, September 29th at the Baylands Athletic Center. The event will offer the half marathon, 10K and 5K. And there'll be more information on paloaltoonline.com/Moonlight Run. The 4th of July event went very well. In addition to the live music, the food trucks, the inflatables, and arts and crafts, we had thousands of people come and enjoy it. Wanted to congratulate our chili team winners. Best spirit went to the Clemens family. Best decorated booth to Donna's Furry Green. People's choice to the Clemens family. And best overall first place for the Double J Chuck Wagon. Some other project updates, the skate park. We've finally got that contracting signatures. This is to do the parking analysis for the skate park. And so that work will be starting soon. The 2850 West Bayshore project, this is where they did the project out at Greer. They completed the actual sewer line quite some time ago. Now we're just waiting for the grass to grow in about 7 more weeks for that to be established. However, I heard from the rec team that they measured there's ample room on the adjacent field, so they could still use it for both sports at that site. The Lytton Plaza fountain repair. City Council approved the contract last night to move forward with the repairs. Tentative schedule is the construction will start September 11th this year and be completed by October 5th. Most of the plaza will remain open during the construction. There'll be a fencing placed around the fountain area. There's a save the date that hopefully all the commissioners received an email about. This is for the board and commission recognition event on September 28th at 5:30 p.m. Should be more information coming from the clerk's office soon to you on that as they work out the details. The Palo Alto Airport Day is this September 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is another free event to all attendees and everyone's welcome. Exhibits will include airplane and helicopter displays, air traffic control tower tours, aircraft flyovers, food trucks, local businesses, and a flying car. This is the first time we've done this since COVID-19, but it used to be an annual event. And then last night, just an FYI, for those that didn't watch it, City Council voted not to go into the closed session on Cubberley last night. Instead, they directed staff to bring it back as an open session for public hearing. And I believe that is now tentatively scheduled for October 16th. Once that's confirmed, I'll be sure to send that out. Our capital projects, I've got just a couple updates. The Baylands Boardwalk piling repair, we're finalizing the permitting and design contracts to get those ready to go. Then they'll hopefully get a quick turnaround on getting our permits. Pending how that permit process goes, we'll target the repair work during the non-nesting season, September 1st to January 31st. Oops. The Bulware Park Improvement Project. This is construction will start on Monday, August 21st. So just yesterday we started, and it'll last about a year. There's a groundsbreaking ceremony scheduled for Thursday, September 7th at 10:30 a.m. and everyone's welcome. And then the Cameron Park project will go, the contract will go to City Council in September. I believe that's supposed to be 11th, actually. So coming up soon, we'll get that contract in place. And then lastly, the Foothills Nature Preserve one, we'll have a discussion on that tonight. And Chair, that wraps up the department report.
Thank you, Darren. Do any commissioners have any clarifying questions or general questions regarding the department report?
Yes.
Nellis?
I think Ann was first.
I'd only like to say to the Enjoy staff, congratulations. The Enjoy arrived in my mailbox the other day and it looks great. And I was also pleasantly surprised to see on one of the pages a advertisement for how to donate to the city through Friends of the Parks or through the Recreation Foundation. So it was great offering of materials for residents and non-residents.
And big thanks to the ad hoc who worked so hard on that. Now, hopefully it'll be an ongoing, regular thing that we'll just keep up indefinitely.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Nellis?
Yes, first of all, I want to congratulate the staff who, I'm sure it was a lot of work putting together the chili cook-off, which was well attended by citizens. I guess there were not a lot of chili booth as compared to the previous years, but it sounded like, I mean, from what I observed, people were out there enjoying the event, the music, the chili, and people were really excited about it. So, and the team of staff people that were out there looked like they started early. They were energized. They were supporting folks. So they did, if you just pass on to them, did a great job that I think was observed by the citizens of Palo Alto.
I'll pass on your kind words. Thank you.
The other thing on the wait list for the summer program, is that, you have any numbers to track whether or not, I mean, I guess it sounds like the number of camps have increased, but what about I mean, is that wait list seems like it's going higher and higher every year? And if so, whether the other question is whether or not we're reaching out to some of the like local nonprofits that have, tennis and aquatics and so forth, looking at maybe a partnership that would be shared by the city.
Yeah, so the numbers have gone up each of these years. You're absolutely right. And this one's substantially more than the last, which is frustrating. As I mentioned, part of it is some duplicate folks that were actually in the camp and double booked, but that doesn't explain all of it. I don't know about your last question about whether we're looking at other partnerships. The one I do know is staff mentioned that they were going to contact PUSD about additional space. I've also heard from one of the staff members that, and I think this might have been a suggestion from the ad hoc, I'm not quite sure, but I believe it was something they were interested in looking at to see if they had more volunteers that were willing to lead camps. Would that be feasible? I know they've looked into that a little bit in the past and it wasn't end up fruitful, but she said she'd be willing to look into it again. So that may be something that helps.
Okay. Thank you.
Just following up on that, would it make sense, or is there a place for the recreation program review ad hoc to play a role in working with staff and further analyzing these numbers and trying to come up with some potential solutions?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think so. I think that would be fully appropriate. It sounds like they've met once with the person I'm mentioning is Kayla, who is running the Enjoy process. And she's really knowledgeable about it, can extract data really well. And so perhaps the ad hoc can work with her to really understand the problem better, which may help us find more innovative solutions.
Okay, I think that would be something good for the ad hoc to look into. Commissioner Oche, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I was gonna wait till the end when we give the reports, but Commissioner Way and I have been in touch with Kayla, and we're hoping to meet again. Part of the things we discussed in our last meeting, I will leave it till when I give the departmental reports, but it's something that we're currently working on.
That's great. We'll look forward to hearing a little more on that at our later agenda item.
Sure, thank you.
Commissioner Kleinhaus.
We got a lot of letters. We were copied on them. Most of them were sent to City Council about Cobberly and the land swap. And I was wondering if this commission has discussed it before I was on the commission, if there's any opinion from the commission, or were we ever asked? I'm just wondering. I'm not.
We were not asked. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we haven't discussed that as a commission. But yes, lots of passionate emails to council and to now to the commission as well, all voicing concern about the land swap. So I believe that was part of the council thinking that they would defer this closed session on Cobberly for an open session because of how important it is to the community to weigh in on different options that would be considered.
And this, when they discussed it last night, they did not look for our input.
That was not mentioned. It was
Okay.
just deferring it.
That's okay. Thanks.
Maybe this would be an opportunity to reach out to Vice Mayor Stone and ask for any perspective or direction in terms of what role the Parks and Rec Commission might look to play at this point or in the future, waiting for more specific direction from City Council, both related to development in general at Cobberly, which of course is a matter that's near and dear to our hearts and been kind of waiting for the right time. And also more specifically, the land swap discussion regarding Turbine Park with respect to Cobberly.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Greenfield. I think the commission will likely have a role to play in the Cobberly discussions at some level and at some point. You know, I think the reason why the commission has not been given this concept of a land swap is it's really just too early on in the process to really even kind of start vetting that idea, because the idea of a land swap, I think, was just informally mentioned by one council member at some meeting at some point in this year, and was kind of kept there as a possible option. I think council last night, and of course I can't go into detail what that closed session would have contained, but I think council last night generally felt like that the discussion at closed session was a bit premature, and we really wanted to have a more transparent, open session on the various policy options. And so I think when we get to that agendized open session discussion, we'll really be able to kind of winnow down some of our options. And if a land swap continues to be on the table at that point, I would not be surprised if that was referred to the commission for further study. Personally, I think that would be a good idea if that remains on the table. So I think that's kind of where we're at. We're just so early in this process. We need to have that discussion and get that community feedback to understand what kind of options do we want to see for the future of Cobberly, and what terms and conditions and things that we're willing to offer to the school district before this really goes much further.
Thank you. Appreciate the guidance there. I'm confident that you know that we're here to help, and happy to contribute as appropriate at an appropriate time.
Absolutely. I think we all recognize you're the subject matter experts. You have the passion and the energy to take this on. So council is fully aware and probably would be happy, I'm sure, to refer that issue to the commission if it comes to that. But definitely stay tuned. Regardless, I'm almost certain that Cumberly at some point will be coming back to you.
Yeah, I'm confident there are other aspects of Coverly that would be interesting and desirable for us to discuss. Thank you. Okay, I have a couple questions. I don't see any other hands. And a number of the questions have been answered already. Following up on Commissioner Freeman's questions regarding the chili cookout questions / observations. I know we've struggled to attract chili cook teams. Pardon my butchering of whatever we're actually referring to them as. It sounds like there weren't as many as hoped for this year. I know it's been an ongoing problem to the extent a significant enough problem that staff is wondering, has wondered about continuing the event if we can't attract more, and wondering where we're at on this and what we can do in the future.
I don't know to the degree that they thought 7, which is how many we had this time, was enough, or they were disappointed. Didn't get into that. It sounded like they were just so pleased. My impression was that they fully intend to continue the chili cook-off next year as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in talking with a couple of the entrants, there was, some of them were saying they got, it was sort of a last word. So maybe we didn't just give people enough lead time to get organized, get their teams together, put things together. Also, I think there were maybe a couple of teams that were sort of outside from, not from Palo Alto, but from other cities. So maybe we can do a better job at, I guess, putting the word out earlier. I don't know what we did in the past that was successful, where we had, a lot of entries. So maybe it's just looking at that and going back and finding out why we didn't have the numbers. I mean, the people were there.
Yeah.
There were long lines for
Yeah.
the 7 entrants that were there. So, I mean, the demand is definitely there from, people attending. We just need to get, there need to be more options, I guess, for people to select, so.
And if there are only 7 teams there, I suspect they ran out pretty early, and the people wanting more chili.
That's true, too. That's, yeah.
So, was there some issue about not deciding as early as in past years whether or not to hold this event, and was the outreach potentially delayed? Do you have any anyway? If you can get more information on that and find out how we could help.
Chair, regarding the chili cook-off, I think that some of it is coming out of COVID as people try to figure out what they're doing. And I think there'll be a bigger uptake next year. And I also think that the Park and Recreation Commission should set a good example and enter a team for next year and be a good model for the
I've heard that
community.
suggestion before.
Along with the firemen and women.
And the Rangers.
The Rangers used to do it. In my very first year, I was churning a massive bowl of chili with a canoe paddle. So yeah, we've done it. Unfortunately, it just became, we just didn't have enough staff time. Summer was so busy, but we can look into it. Our staff's grown a little bit, and see if we can maybe try to pull that off.
Well, since we're talking about Rangers, there's a segue. So you mentioned there you're interviewing for assistant park rangers. And I was wondering what we thought about park rangers versus preserve rangers.
The title park ranger is long held and has some history to it, and I would be reluctant to give it up. I like the term preserve for what used to be places like Foothills Park. I like that change a lot, but for the title, I'm pretty attached to park ranger myself. But I don't know, Mike, thoughts on that?
I would agree with Darren on that. That's a long-held term, and it's also codified in the state of California's laws and regulations. So it'd be a little harder. I've never heard of the term preserve ranger, but it's a unique term, that's for sure.
Yeah, just given that the rangers are patrolling preserves rather than parks, that beg the question.
Yeah, I would suggest more so open space ranger would be more appropriate.
And is that something that you would consider, or you're still too attached to park?
For me, I would not budge on the term park ranger. That title has been around for centuries. So yeah, I would not give it up. I think it's too valuable. There's too much pride in that and earning that title.
I think we can put this to bed. Thank you. And just real quickly, last question. Could you review again what the action that regarding the skate park?
This is the contract to do the parking analysis.
Contract for the parking analysis. Okay. Any other follow-up questions?
Sorry, I keep thinking as we go along here, but that's good. On the park improvements, and maybe there's signage out there to show what type of improvements are going to take place and sort of what the time frame is. That way people walking by kind of know what's going on and not surprised, but people start to wonder, why is this going on? So I don't know if there's signage out there, but if you can show signage to show what the improvements are and sort of kind of the timing that's involved in that process.
Yeah, we usually have a who, what, when, why fact sheet that's got.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great idea. Thank you. Vice Mayor Stone, do you have any further comments, questions?
No,
Just thought I'd check in.
thank you.
I think we can move on then to our first business item, the Foothills Nature Preserve Draft Improvement Plan.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Again, Darren Anderson with Community Services Department. And I'm joined this evening with Peter Jensen, the Public Works Landscape Architect. He's on Zoom. And to my left, Mike Warner, the Supervising Ranger for Foothills. Thank you both for being here and helping with this one. Let me start with why this improvement plan was needed. What was the purpose behind this? And it really is about when the preserve opened to the general public in December 17, 2020, visitation since that time relative to now increased by approximately 40% compared with the historical average. And that increase in visitors highlighted a number of needs for infrastructure improvements. And some of the challenges were that visitors were walking off trail into sensitive areas, and temporary measures that we took, like stakes and ropes to ensure people stayed on trail, were effective. They were very helpful. We implemented them right away to minimize damage, but we need a long-term solution. You can't just leave that kind of fencing there indefinitely. We need real split rail that stays up and fits in aesthetically. We had an increase in vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists all sharing the same narrow trails in the preserve, which creates safety hazards that we still have to this day, especially on busy weekends. Some of the existing parking areas in the preserve proved problematic, in particular the parking areas at Vista Hill and Baranda Lake. They just need renovation to make it safer and more efficient for the increased number of vehicles. And some of the roadside parking that we've got is really no longer safe given the number of visitors we have. And lastly, the increased number of vehicles that are speeding in the preserve. There are a number of improvements aimed at addressing the fast-moving vehicles. This is the high-level improvement plan that shows a little bit of everything between the split rail, the curbing for the new pedestrian trail that would travel throughout the preserve, the parking areas that we want to look at for improving, speed bumps, etc. But rather than look through this one, we're going to just walk through the different improvements. And let me turn it over to Peter Jensen now. Peter, if you would, take it.
Good evening, Commission. Peter Jensen, Landscape Architect for the City of Palo Alto. Just going to go through the area is kind of broken into 3 different locations, and we'll basically get into that graphic we were just looking at a second ago and walk through what those things are. Oh, next slide, please. So I think the overall goals, as we've been talking to the ad hoc, was to create, to define and continuous pathway through the Foothills Park itself. Right now, mostly people are walking through down the road, and it's just not setting up the best circumstances. I want to improve the parking. I'm sorry, can I take a moment, please? I'm having a throat issue.
Sure, Peter, let me do some talking on this part and have a drink, and when you're ready, join back in. Yeah, so the improved parking and access at Baronda Lake was the other one, improving that parking on top of Vista Hill. And then this creating a trail between the upper section of Baronda Lake parking and the lake itself. So this is in a particular challenging spot where people are walking down a fairly hazardous interchange. We call it the Y section in the main preserve road. And if they don't go that route, they cut right down through some sensitive vegetated areas and have created a number of little illegal trails that are tough to restore once they're developed. And so we wanted to create a nice trail that would bring you down to the lake. So some of the things on the left, we could see this is the line that says new pathway along edge of road. And so this is literally on the edge of the road, meaning approximately from the end of the asphalt over somewhere between 5 and 3 feet, depending on what's there. It'll narrow when we have sensitive vegetation like a tree. There are no trees removed as part of this plan. And it would start somewhere near the entrance here and travel all along that pink line all the way up to Vista and also down towards Baronda Lake. It stops and discontinues when you get to this section here where the dam is located, because you can walk, there's already a trail right here that brings you around the roadway and connects down. And here we add more of that trail, and it essentially goes all along the road to the very end of the preserve at Oak Grove. We've got, Peter, I see you're back, just chime in whenever you'd like, or if you want me to continue, that's fine too.
No, you can continue doing fine.
Okay. We've got new crosswalks that will be accompanied with stop signs at these yellow markers. And they've been strategically located in areas, A, where we want to cross people over from one side of this new pedestrian trail to the other, and where we've got long straightaways and vehicles are gaining a lot of speed and moving fast. And they've done so for years. This has been a problem area. So I think this is going to really aid and address that speeding vehicle issue. And we've got them up here at Vista in 4 different areas, one at the Y section here. And then as we come over to the lake in 2 spots. And then lastly, to get across by Orchard Glen picnic area. And then again, by the interpretive center. And again, those are crosswalks with stop signs. And we've got curbing the blue line. It sort of melds into this pathway. It's intended to be right along the edge of the road and basically stop vehicles from using that new pedestrian trail as a parking spot, keep them safe and separated. And we've got speed bumps, and you can see that in these red hashed lines. And again, as cars gain speed coming down, they're often moving far too quick in that area around the dam. And again, from the base of the dam down to Orchard Glen picnic area is another chronic fast moving vehicle spot that we wanted to add these speed bumps in. And then lastly, bike parking. At the good suggestion of the Foothills liaisons, we included bike parking at the entrance. The exact location is still to be dialed in by the ranger staff, but you could see the general area at the entrance at the top of Vista Hill. And this one, I think we're going to recommend relocating it. This is a small vehicle pullout. And rather than be there, we were actually going to recommend it be somewhere near the dock area of the lake where so many people come to hang out. Again, by Orchard Glen picnic area and by the interpretive center for our new bike parking spots. I think that covers that slide.
Dan, I can jump back in here. And I apologize. I had a little crown put on today, and it's been kind of painful. So excuse me for stepping away for a minute. What we're looking at here is an exhibit of the top of Vista Hill. So if you go up to Vista Hill, of course, the parallel parking up there at the top exists now. I think we just want to define it better and make it an actual paved with a curb. It's actually up higher, the next one where the cars are up there. So we're just basically going to renovate that. That's what's being proposed. Now, as you then travel down then the road, you get to what is now kind of just a paved area that's not very well defined. What we're proposing there is to define the edges better, where we can remove some of the asphalt that's there along the edge, make them more defined parking spaces. Right now, there's really no actual stalls for cars to park in. So making that defined, as well as adding, of course, accessible parking there. We do then add in a few parallel stalls that are kind of right underneath that, that are there. As you travel down the road here, there's opportunity again for parking. Because the asphalt kind of expands there, we looked at some bus overflow parking. I think it's more been discussed that this would be an area, if it was going to have parking, would just be overflow parking for automobiles, basically going right there. And then as you move all the way back around, we have the top of the hill and the parking up there. And really, the subtle change that's occurred here is those parking stalls there are actually angled the other direction in this exhibit than they are now. So it makes sense with the one-way traffic loop going around. So you're never having to cross basically the traffic to get to the stalls. You're always just driving in the continuous loop in and out. And then, of course, maintaining the parallel parking then that's also up there along the edge of the road that's used for overflow parking as well. Along the edge where the new parking is, and then up at the top where the kind of the vista and the lookouts are, that will all be connected along the edge by a pathway. So there'll be a path that then connects those areas together, and then all the way back down the hill. I think we can go to the next slide. This is something we're proposing down by Veranda Lake. This is a new expanded parking area. And you can see it's in that exhibit right there, that yellow line is basically where the line drawing next to it is showing an expanded head-in parking area. It is a level area there. It's just a thought to provide, instead of having the parallel parking along the lakeside, try to get it to the other side of the street. I think we've had some conversations over the past week about down further from here and the parking on the other side of the lake. And I think there's probably a little bit more development that we can discuss with that as well. But for this, I think we're looking at adding parking in this location. Next slide. These are some images of basically what the split rail fence would look like. It's more natural and rustic in its appearance. And then the asphalt curb, which basically has a slot cut in it that allows drainage and water that collects on the road to pass through. So the curb proposed next to the road would basically look like that, with the pathway that would be compacted earth or base on the other side over there. And this is just a little section basically showing that. It's basically showing the curb in between the road and the pathway, and how it would be constructed throughout. I think in the end, what we really started to look at was really a pathway that goes from all the way to the ranger station or the check-in building that's there in the front, all the way to the back of the park. So you can continuously walk on a pathway. And of course, that then starts to mix in where those crosswalks are at. And you need to have a stop sign to create a crosswalk. They kind of go hand in hand. You just can't have a crosswalk in a road without a stop. So I think they start to make sense in the traffic and controlling the traffic, having to stop in certain places. So I think they all start to work good of making better safety, of course, better access for pedestrians and cars through the park that's better defined. So I think go to the next slide. Darren, do you want to go through this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Peter. So our next steps, we want to continue working with the Foothills liaisons to further develop the plan, and of course, incorporating the commission's feedback. And as we work with the ad hoc, we'll see if it needs to come one more time for another discussion before we look at a park improvement ordinance for the plan. Concurrently with that process, the timing still needs a little fine tuning because I'm not exactly sure. I need a couple more conversations with the planner to talk about this minor architectural review. She had a feeling that we could do this concurrently with the park improvement ordinance. I just want to make sure that we don't have recommendations for changes coming from the architectural review that aren't necessarily get a chance to be reviewed and discussed by the PRC. So I want to make sure that we time that the right way. So I just need to do a little more research on how that is optimized. And then we'll do a park improvement ordinance, and then that will go to the city council, and then the bidding and construction. I put TBD on a lot of this. I had some ideas in mind that were really aspirational and fast moving as early as next month to come back with maybe a PIO. And that's not still out of the question. Maybe I had overextended myself a bit and didn't get a chance to talk to my partners in Public Works to see their capacity for managing some of these next steps too. So a little more homework on my part to fine tune the timing for these things, but these are the steps that we'll take.
And so you'd say the timing is within the next 1 to 3 months?
Yeah,
Most
timing
likely.
for which part?
Coming back with the PO to the commission.
Yeah, I'd love to meet with the liaisons and talk through this. I just need a couple more check-ins with planning to make sure what comes out of that ARB review, I don't want it to alter what we do here at the PRC, and then you don't get to talk about these changes that are proposed. So I just want to run that past her to make sure. But the planner I spoke with said they could run concurrently.
Right. And just a reminder, there isn't actually an ad hoc.
This is
working on this.
liaisons,
It's a commission liaisons.
And that wraps up the presentation, Chair.
Well, thank you to all three of you for being here to present this. This is a nice bookend to the presentation that we had at our last meeting on Foothills, and a nice continuation. This is something that is a lot of these plans have grown out of the stakeholder group that has been it was put together shortly after the Foothills Nature Preserve was renamed and open to the public. And so a lot of these plans have been ideas that have been in the works and have matured over time. And I think it's safe to say that not everything that was considered considered 3 years ago is something that we need to move forward with now. But it's good to have the period of time to review things and see what makes sense and have a more cost-effective and prioritized plan that's put together. I've been on the serving on the stakeholder group. Commissioner Kleinhaus is on it now as well. Commissioner Cribbs has been on it in the past. So there has been a lot of input with that group from the commission directly. Would either of you as the past or current members of the stakeholder group like to comment first on the plan? Questions? Or actually, let's check and see if there's any members of the public looking to speak. I didn't see anyone previously. If there's anybody who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and give an opportunity. And then, are there any clarifying questions from the commission members before we go to comments? Ann? Joy, excuse me.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just a very quick question. I know the last time you presented, I had a bag of questions, so I'll make it really snappy this time. I just wanted to find out how often we do these access improvements. When did we do the last one?
It's a great question. It's been routine maintenance, not improvements addressing increased visitation. For example, we repaved the roadway. That was probably the last, I think, significant capital investment at Foothills So it's just fixing what we had, not improving access or looking at addressing infrastructure challenges. I think you'd have to go back before my time. Almost everything else has been fixing existing stuff, bathroom renovations, for example, but really not addressing capacity or changing needs.
Thank you. I was just wondering, since I recently joined not too long ago, and it might be helpful to see trends of, capital improvement projects that have happened over the years, especially as it concerns a particular location. I believe that might be helpful if we have, provide like a link maybe on the website where residents can have access to see, different improvements or different things that have, been done in that particular location.
Darren, are there documents that you think would be appropriate to add links for?
It's a good question. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head. As I mentioned, the previous capital projects were maintenance ones, not necessarily germane, but I could certainly find links to the staff reports for those, and we could post them somewhere if that's helpful.
So we're talking about, Mike?
I was saying we could also probably post our project information sheets as we go forward with projects on the website.
There was the realignment of Costanoan Trail a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Really aimed though at a failure of the existing, and there was not much choice but to reroute it. But yeah.
If I could walk that, it wasn't too steep.
No, but there were trail washouts. So again, that does fall clearly under the hat of maintenance. Anne or Shani, do you have objective comment?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Did you say stop signs or stop lights at the crossroads?
Signs.
Okay. And what is the ARB reviewing?
They would look at this plan. In particular, I think the parking is probably one that they'll look closely at, but I think they can look at any part of it that they want. The type of fencing, for example, is of interest to them to ensure it's in keeping with the style that we use elsewhere in the preserve, which it is. That kind of thing, they'll keep their eyes on.
Okay. And lastly, do you do any CEQA on this or?
Yeah, I included in the staff report what I had received from the planner regarding CEQA, and it's exempt from CEQA from what I've shared with her so far. The one part that I think needs additional, and I mentioned this also in the staff report, that would need environmental assessment is that new trail that goes from Veranda. So this is not going right on the edge of the road. This is the one exception, and I can highlight that again if that's helpful for anyone. But that area, I don't know if you could quite make it out, but it comes down through this area as opposed to along the road. And that area, while we had it looked at it with both our trail contractor and with Grassroots, and they said, yeah, we've been in there, we didn't see any native or sensitive species. It still needs additional assessment before we finalize a route.
Well, if there is no CEQA, not needed, how do you make sure that there is no impact to sensitive species beyond, oh, I don't think there are any there?
Well, as I just mentioned, in the only area where we're going off trail, less than 3 feet from a paved roadway, which is already compacted base rock in almost every area of the preserve. If you go along that road, it's either manicured grass that's mowed and irrigated, or it's compacted base with mixture of asphalt grindings on it. This would be the one area where it's not that case. You're going into a natural area, and that's the area that would get the assessment that I think you're talking about.
So would we be able to move forward with a PIO recommendation before that assessment has been completed?
I believe so, but I think that's another one where I've got to consult with Claire Raybold from planning. She's the senior planner that's been helping with this.
Thank you. Any more, Shani?
No, it's just that, when I look at a CEQA document, you look at the physical disturbance and whether you're going to be there's going to be something in the way, but the work itself could cause disturbance, temporary disturbance, and I don't know if you're looking at that too.
We certainly want to time any work to avoid nesting species, wildlife migrations, whatever else is going on. So I think we absolutely will. And some of it can be staggered. For example, when this first all happened, the rangers were willing to put in that split rail right away. And so, for example, I think we wouldn't have to wait. Once we get the plans approved and the park improvement ordinance is ready to go, some parts we can implement whenever we want right away, in-house even. And then others will require a contractor. We certainly wouldn't be doing anything with the striping of parking stalls and that kind of thing. So that will just have to be more thoughtful on the timing. But some of it we have more control over. It can do separately.
Thank you.
I would appreciate getting some clarification on making sure all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed regarding environmental requirements, particularly for that new trail area before something's put in front of us to make a recommendation on. And if it's necessary to split that out as a separate item for expediency, then let's consider that separate path, a parallel path. Thank you. Ann?
Yes, just to say, Darren, thank you very much for all of this. It's really wonderful to see this come from where it started and the work that's all been done from so many people, the stakeholders in the community and all of that. So thank you for that. And it feels really aggressive to get to a PIO in September or October. So I applaud you for trying that. Do you have any for the future, any thoughts about, is it going to be difficult to go through the bidding process? I mean, I know we have to do it, but we've had so much trouble in the past for things. It's last year. Is there anything that can be done to make that go a little bit faster?
Yeah, the two challenge points that I foresee are just that, the bidding process. Will we get good competitive bids within our budget? Will we have to come back to council and ask for additional funds, as so often has been the case with recent projects that they exceeded our engineer's estimate by a significant margin. And then the other is staff capacity to do the construction drawings. I was just talking with my colleagues earlier today, and they were advising that they're at capacity with current projects, and we really need to be hiring a consultant to do that part, which I'm glad to manage to help bear the load. I know they've got so many different projects going, and all starting like now, including Bullware, which is a big year-long, very intense project. But I think between my staff and a little guidance from the Public Works Engineering crew, we can bring on a consultant to do the construction drawings and try to make that happen quickly and expeditiously.
Well, that's good news. So from all of your professional experience, if you had to guess, when would these improvements be started? About?
I think I'll have a better informed guess at our next meeting that
That's
we
very
check in. Is
fair.
that fair?
Yeah, it's totally fair. I just wanted to ask the question. And then looking to the future, this is more really for the stakeholders group. Is there any thought about improvements to the interpretive center or changes to the interpretive center, and any partnerships with our local environmental groups who have interest? Is that even on the list?
If I could help answer that one, then, and certainly the ad hoc liaisons rather, it is definitely on the long-term list. This short one, in accordance with the CIP this is associated with, is really addressing these more immediate emergency concerns about safety. But I absolutely know that our staff and liaisons and our partner group are all cognizant that the interpretive center is outdated and ready for a rehaul, and has been for a number of years. So it's definitely on that list of something we want to pursue. It's just not part of our immediate plans.
Okay, I'm really glad it's on the list and it's going to stay on the list. And I'm really glad that the docent thing for the future with the colleges are going to stay on the list. So, and I know that's outside of what we're talking about, but thank you for letting me slip it in.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Mike, I'm interested in your thoughts about the interpretive center. You're fresh eyes seeing it, and you probably noticed it's a little bit outdated. It was kind of outdated when my kids were young, and they're out of college now.
Yeah, we've taken notice of that. One of the things we have planned going forward for this year is kind of try to take stock on what kind of up with an ideas that we'd like to see for it done, at least within the ranger staff. So I know it's on our radar for this year coming up, but we don't have any solid plans yet. But hopefully, maybe next time we're back here, we'll have a little more information for you.
That's great that you're compiling a list, and I think this is the type of thing where we can try to leverage reaching out to the community for assistance in various different ways, whether it's funding or with other types of help regarding improving the area. So I'd encourage you to not be too constrained in what you're thinking about and the potential vision to reshape it.
Okay.
Also, when you consider how often it is that we do take on a project like this, as Darren has mentioned, the improvements to the preserve are few and far between. So let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
And anything else?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Commissioner Oche, would you have comments?
No, just saying a big thank you to the team and hoping that we can have like a repository to reflect historical information or data of, repairs and renovations for residents to have access to.
Thank you. Actually, there's a couple of, before I go to the other commissioners who haven't had an opportunity to speak, there's a few particular areas that have been discussed both with the commission liaisons and with the stakeholder group, and it might be worth more discussion to get your opinions on things. But one of the things that was encouraged was increasing, putting some handicap parking on the roadside by the lake edge, which I think is very important. While we are increasing the net number of parking spaces in the Baranda Lake area, they are going to be less ideally located, I would say. That the new spots near the fork in the road are further away from the more popular lake access points. Will provide parking for more people overall, but not quite as convenient as it has been in the past. I'd expect there to be some frustration from visitors who used to be able to park along the edge of the lake that won't be able to do so anymore. I do support it. I think overall the number of parking spaces that we'll have in the preserve is good, and I think that we're making this change for good reasons. But I'm interested in seeing the layout in more detail of how the handicap parking will occur there. And another suggestion that is difficult but desirable is to put together some sort of a turnaround, some ways, some means of a turnaround or a means for cars to just be heading towards the lake and then go back the other direction. What people will commonly do is they'll drive down, or they may look for a handicap spot by the lake, and then if it's not there, then to turn around they have to go all the way down to Orchard Glen. Or also the idea of having a drop-off spot. And I know this has been battered around with staff, and it is a challenge, but it's something that I think is still worthy of discussion. As was briefly mentioned, that there was discussion about potential bus parking at Vista Hill. This idea wasn't pursued because it wasn't really convenient for where buses need to be, and the thought was that bus parking in general is sufficient at the Oak Grove parking lot at the end of the road. I'm interested in hearing more information more specific details about the bike parking that will be provided. But that's enough comments for others to consider further discussion on. Nellis?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, are there any analytics, I guess, I mean, seems like the traffic has gotten worse over a certain period of time. Do you have anything to show how has that grown, and from what point in time? And was that used to, I guess, determine the number of parking spaces that would be built out and allocated? How'd you come up with a number of the number of new parking spaces that would be added?
Yeah, the parking changes, like as we look at Veranda, for example, which is undoubtedly the most popular parking area in the preserve. That's where most people go, probably closely followed by Orchard Glen on weekends, but the lake for sure. And we've had approximately 25 spots. This brings it to 31, so we're increasing by 6, fairly marginal increase. But we're also keeping an eye on the net increase for the entire preserve, which is actually a significant drop of in the neighborhood of 400, probably a hair more than that, of what we had prior to opening up to the general public, down to 360 with this draft improvement plan. So over 40 fewer parking. It's really increasing it where it made the most sense, which is really Veranda. I think Vista largely stays the same. It's really close to what it is. It's just cleaner, more identified. So I guess it's based on observations ever since where visitation increased. Where are people going? Where are our parking problems at and where citations are being issued? It's typically the problem areas, especially as it impacts pedestrians and cyclists, is that edge of road parking, which we already eliminated quite a bit of it because there were just people at risk. And that happened, between 2021 and now. We had gotten rid of those. So it was observational by the rangers, where we're writing tickets, where the problems are, and where people want to park, and where can we do it safely, make it sense, and not impact the habitat.
Okay, one more. And making the determination as to whether speed bumps are going to go versus where the, I guess, 2 or 3 stop signs would be. So people would have to stop at the stop signs, whether or not they're civilians, pedestrians crossing, right? So that slows traffic down, and then I guess going further up, they then hit a speed bump. So I guess you looked at those two items being what would slow people down from having to speed up. So that's sort of how you made that.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah, between the two, I think they're thoughtful tools to help address a long-standing speeding problem. And strategically targeted in areas where they're long straightaways, often heading downhill, where people just are on the normal driving, hitting 25 miles, 30 miles per hour. Speed limit's 20.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair?
Thank you for the presentation. I was struck by the balance of adding clarity and convenience while maintaining the natural environment of the preserve. I look at this as a little bit of an investment to maintain that natural environment with the increased visitation. Knowing that this is part of a multi-pronged approach, we have these physical changes, but it also complements the education enforcement that's done by our park ranger staff, and we appreciate that. I agree with some of the comments, but one idea, and it doesn't need to be discussed tonight, is maybe doing time limits for parking near high traffic areas, maybe a 15-minute parking. I'm not suggesting that the rangers are there to be parking enforcement, more of an honor system, but that way there would be more turnover. I know when I've been there, there are folks that pull over, get a quick picture for Instagram or whatever, and then want to keep moving. So that might encourage folks to either do a drop off or a handicap person. It might just be a nice hybrid approach to be considered by the group. But overall, it looks great and I'm excited.
Awesome, thanks. And just, I'm not sure if I clarified this anywhere in the draft plan, but the entrance area, we had converted 6 stalls or 7 that had been regular parking stalls to 10-minute ones, and it had worked pretty well. My kids told me there are some issues where people will keep treating it like an all-day parking lot, but it has been useful and helpful in that area in particular, where you need to be able to have a short-term parking to address your whatever issue you're having in negotiating the entrance process. And that's worked out well. And we were thinking this is the next step. We haven't had a chance to work with the liaisons yet, but maybe by the lake that would help address our drop-off area in the 10-minute spot. In fact, when I started, there was a spot near the lake that was it was boat loading. I can't remember the time limit, but yeah, we're very interested in exploring that. And Peter and Mike have already put their heads together to come up with some ideas to address the drop-off, loading zone and handicap parking that the chair had mentioned near the lake. So hope to discuss that further with liaisons and have that be something the commission can look at when we come back.
Thank you. A couple more questions. I didn't notice until this evening the reverse, what looks like a reverse traditional flow on the Vista Hill parking. And so this is new, or this is it looks great on paper.
It still exists up there, it just angles the other way.
So right now the loop, the travel in the loop is counterclockwise, and it would be changed to become clockwise.
Yes.
And as a result of that, for the stretch of road between the main Vista Hill Road and the loop, it would be two-way traffic with cars encouraged to drive on the opposite side of the street of the road that they normally operate on. That looks problematic to me without having clear guidance for vehicles, as in like even a divider through the road. And I'm not sure that the road is so wide that you would want it to be divided. It's not a very high traffic road, and I'm just.
That's something that we can study with transportation.
Yeah, thank you.
Their feedback.
I guess I had similar questions. Can I add to
Sure.
that?
Sure, go ahead.
Why was the pattern, the loop planned as it is now? What was the history to, it's like opposite direction now. So do you know why?
I don't, it was.
No
that's the way it
history
was,
there.
yeah.
Okay. Because you come up, if you come up from the one-way road from the interpretive center, you used to go the short way to get out of the park. Now you'd have to go all the way around, or is that not?
No, this part changed. If
Okay,
you're
it's
coming up
only
the
the
one-way
inner
road.
loop that changed?
That's right.
Okay.
It's just this piece that.
So,
It's
yeah.
probably it was 2 lanes. I mean, traffic all around the top, I would say at one point. And then it got changed to a one-way.
Okay.
It's probably the evolution of it.
Yeah. So, I commented on that with ad hoc, and I always will, whenever you can narrow a road, that's the best way to control traffic and speeding and everything else. So any place that it's possible to narrow would be good. And if not narrowed, then use it as part of the sidewalk if you have one there, or the trail. Anyway, all right.
And one more comment. I just wanted to confirm that all of this plan will go to city council for approval and for PIO with a recommendation from the
That's
commission.
correct.
That there are no aspects of this improvement plan that would that staff would be taking on without city council approval.
That's right.
Thank you. Any further questions from any commission members? Is there any further discussion or ideas about how to potentially handle a turnaround? Something that could
By the
help
lake.
by the lake.
There are, we hope to have the exhibit as a backup, and we didn't quite get there yet. So I think we'll have to wait till we get together as the liaisons, but we're pretty much ready in another couple days to do that. So we can schedule that right away and get to work on fine tuning that and making some cleanups to what we've got too.
Great, thank you. And also, we want to engage with the stakeholder group on plan updates, any further. The group's only meeting every month, every other month or so. And depending on on how quickly work to get back to the commission, I don't know if you want to make sure you reach out to the stakeholder group.
Yeah, we can invite them, in fact, to our next liaison meeting if we want. And I think they'd probably appreciate the offer.
Okay, thank you. If that's all we have, then we can move on to our next agenda item. Thank you very much, Peter and Mike, for joining us and for all your work on this, and Darren, of course, as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next agenda item is titled Detailed Ad Hoc and Liaison Status Updates and Planning Process and Reporting. That's a little bit of a mouthful. But what we'd like to do is take this opportunity to do a little deeper dive on the ad hoc updates. We have time this evening. Unfortunately, some other agenda items we were hoping to have come in aren't quite ready for this month. But I also think it's a great opportunity to get a restart on the actions that we're working towards and the action plan items we have. It's an opportunity for each of the ad hocs to give a presentation, just a quick overview of a couple, 2 to 5 minutes or so, to fill in the full commission with any status updates. It's an opportunity for the ad hocs to share any challenges that they may be having any questions they may be seeking input on, as well as sharing progress. We are also looking to plan our Parks and Rec Commission meeting agendas for the rest of the calendar year. So we're looking for specific input on when your ad hoc would like to present to the commission this calendar year, or if for some reason it would not be appropriate for the ad hoc to present. By default, hopefully most of the ad hocs will be presenting, because we want the ad hocs working in conjunction with the commission, or we really want the full commission involved as much as possible. So if you can give an overview of what month would be appropriate, what month or months would be appropriate for you to present at, so we can help to plan. If you can provide a kind of a draft agenda topic that you would be presenting, and mention any deliverables that you're expecting to have completed this calendar year, understanding that the ad hocs and our timeline really extends throughout most of the fiscal year and until we turn over in May. Also bear in mind, these are not individually agendized discussions, so it's not we can't have free and open discussions on things. In general, comments from other commissioners should be kept to clarifying questions or to suggestions for consideration for the ad hoc to take with them, but not to respond to at this point in time. Darren, would you like to add anything else regarding any guidance, anything I got wrong, any general recommendations?
Well stated, Chair.
Okay. And I will also mention that the Vice Chair and I are looking to have a meeting coming up with the Director and Assistant Director of Community Services to just gauge, make sure we're on to check the resources available from staff based on the action plan commitments that we have. Let's do a reality check, particularly given changes in staffing available within the department. And so it's an appropriate time to take a step back and see if what we have mapped out for us is realistic for us to all complete both the commission effort and the associated staff effort, which we rely so much upon and appreciate so much. Any questions on what we're aiming for this evening? Okay, why don't we go through the ad hoc committees in the order that they appear on the in the alphabetical order that they appear on the link that we have on our website. And I'll also comment that there's also an opportunity for any of the liaisons to provide an update, particularly if a liaison would like to thinks it's appropriate to have something agendized this calendar year on in their for their liaison areas. That would be very helpful to know as we're in this planning process. So first up is the bicycle/e-bike access policy ad hoc. Commissioners Freeman and Kleinhaus.
We've actually, I think we've been meeting every other week. We have a walkthrough, I believe, scheduled for next week. But there's not a lot of action or traction on this right now. But I think we've had maybe 2 meetings since the last the PRC meeting. So I really don't have a lot to add to that.
The only thing to add is that we brought up the issue of bicycle parkings with the Foothills Park plans. So that's the contribution to that. But we're waiting for the next week's visit to the Baylands and some other things, and also to receive some information from staff about recommendations for trails at the Rastradero and whether some of them should be limited to some uses. We don't really have an opinion on that. We were waiting to hear from staff. So that's where we're at on that.
Could you clarify what the feedback you're looking for again from staff is regarding the trails?
So the direction was to look at trails, at narrow trails at Rastradero and see if bicycles and or horses should not be able to use them. And so we didn't really have an opinion on that, and we're waiting for staff to give us some of the impressions of the rangers and others as to whether some of those trails should be closed to some of those uses. But we don't have any preconceived opinion on that. I walked many of those trails, waiting to hear from staff.
Darren, you're the staff liaison for the ad hoc. Is anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just that I appreciate the ad hoc support on that. And we've been working to identify these parking areas, both at Rastradero and Baylands. And I think we've got some good offerings. This tour will help fine tune that, make sure we got the right amount, right location that makes sense. And then this other discussion that Commissioner Kleinhaus just mentioned, the rangers are already thinking about that. Are there spots in our preserves, both Baylands and Rastradero, that may not be appropriate for certain uses like bikes and horses? And so I just want to have a more thoughtful discussion with the staff, and then we'll pull in the ad hoc and work on that together.
Any clarifying questions or suggestions from other commission members? When do you think it would be appropriate to share potential findings or recommendations with the full commission? And I guess that's kind of a 2-part question. When do you think, what kind of time frame do you think we're talking about for staff to provide feedback that the ad hoc's looking for, and then for the ad hoc to further develop this into
I
something
think we're very
presentable.
close on the bike parking element. I think in another couple of weeks, we should wrap that up is my feeling. Kind of pens this tour once we see it. Sometimes just looking online at a map is
Yeah.
not the same. So we'll fine tune that. And I think that one's near term, 2-3 weeks. We should be really close to having something that we could recommend. The other question I want to dig a little bit deeper into. This is on, are there trails that are no longer appropriate for certain uses? And that one I want to dig in just a little bit more deeper. And I would think maybe another month on that. And that's for staff to have an opinion to discuss, and then the liaison or ad hoc, however long we need
Yeah.
to.
So we do the walkthrough so we can get a good feel for what we're looking at
Yeah.
versus trying to view it online.
And I'm thinking there would be another walk.
Come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
At wherever we think there might be some trail issues. Sure. Thanks, Mike.
Like Darren said, take some time to get the full staff opinion on it. One thing that I would make sure we're aware of is that Arastadero does have the Arastadero Trail Maintenance Plan and Management Plan, which was created in 2001. Any changes to the Arastadero Preserves trails have to be in line with that plan. So if we were wanting to go down that route in the future, I would highly suggest that we reevaluate either conducting a new plan. It's been 20 years since that plan was issued originally. So maybe that's a bigger discussion that we need to have, is the reworking of that plan or getting more public opinion on that plan before we move forward. So that's a bigger process than just changing the use designation.
I was not in our direction from the council. Our direction, the first council, was very specific to look at some trails and see whether they should be limited for horse and bicycle use and all. So that's what we're looking to do. I'm not really sure that we want to recommend opening that plan unless we have some major changes that would not be consistent with it. So I guess we should read the plan. If Darren, sorry, can you send it to me?
Yeah, both of us.
Yeah.
Actually, if you could go ahead and forward the plan to the full commission, I think that would be helpful. And while this wasn't part of the specific work item and the direction from city council, that doesn't mean that the commission can't look to expand the scope of things. Of course, to expand the scope of things, we need to have the resources available to complete a meaningful accomplishment to deliver something meaningful. Don't want to bite off more than we can handle, which we're pretty good at brainstorming anyway. One suggestion that I made to Darren a while back, and I don't know if he shared with the ad hoc, and it's something that I ran across pretty much right after we went to city council with the last recommendation. But looking at a plan, I believe it's in the national parks, have some plans where class 2 e-bikes, which are the e-bikes that can operate with either pedal power or no pedal power. Basically, the requirement is that they must be pedaled. And so while there are a lot of things about e-bikes that are difficult to enforce, this is something that it would be very straightforward to enforce, in that if someone's riding an e-bike, the guideline is it has to be pedaled. And it's pretty easy to see if someone's not pedaling. And I think this is a very much of a common sense type of a guideline, would be something that I think would be useful for the ad hoc to consider for future policy updates. Any other questions or comments regarding for this ad hoc? So do we have a target date or date range for presenting to the commission? A discussion to the commission, I think, is Probably what we're talking about.
Not yet, not yet. I think it is conceivable, though, that we'd have this before the end of the year, that this could be a November, December thing, pending on how our conversations go. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
Christian? Okay.
That sounds great. That's what it was sounding like to me. Potential for November, December. Thank you. Next up is the grant opportunities ad hoc.
Well, due to people's vacations and everybody's schedules and the budget, we have not yet been able to meet with our staff liaison, which is Kristen O'Kane, but we will do that on Thursday at 1 o'clock. And the purpose of the meeting for Commissioner Way and I really is to understand the history in terms of the department grants that have been gotten in the past and what's possible to get or to go after now, given the current staffing levels, and if it's even at all possible, and then how the commission can help. So I don't think that we would be ready, because we really haven't started to do very much of anything until, gee, at the earliest, the end of the year. Although, as everybody knows, I think I'm very interested in obtaining grants and finding if we can create a process to obtain some of the grants, especially in the areas of sustainability. So I think just more to come, and I feel like we'll be able to say more after we have our meeting.
Thanks, Ann. Is there a staff, any staff input on this?
Not for me. I haven't been working on this one.
I'm just offering the opportunity.
I appreciate it.
Any questions from commissioners? Johnny?
I was just wondering if there is any chance that staff would consider trying to get funds for the Buckeye Creek restoration.
Could you speak a little louder?
Oh, I'm wondering if staff can work on a grant proposal for the Buckeye Creek restoration at Foothills Park. It would be within there's some money now for restoration projects, more than they used to be, state money. And I was wondering if you guys are looking into applying for any of that.
You know, we haven't yet. We haven't done that yet. And I think you're right. Since the time we completed the hydrology study, there's been a lot of opportunities, and it's really been about staff capacity, and it remains the issue. For example, just the plan we talked about today and the regular maintenance that the rangers are working on, I foresee that dominating the open space focus probably for the next 6 months and maybe longer. Ultimately, the way I see it playing out is we're probably the project managers too for that project, meaning a ranger or me or one of my staff is going to be with the contractor working on Foothills for the trails, for the fencing, for the parking improvements. I don't foresee us having the time to manage that, but I couldn't agree more that it's important, and I'd like to. I think this one's maybe slightly more pressing. You know, we've got the funding now, we're developing the plans. But I don't disagree with you one bit that it deserves attention. It's just a matter of having the resources to do so.
Could you comment about the ongoing increasing need for dealing with some of the problems on Buckeye Creek that we outlined a number of years ago, and how they've gotten worse with the storms, or to what extent they've gotten worse? Is the urgency for this increasing?
No, from my perspective, it hasn't, but I also think that it has the potential, like it did in the 70s, to eventually become a very serious problem. That's when a lot of those great control structures were added, because significant portions of the creek washed out or failed. So as it continues to downcut, as it is, and as the deposition problems with the creek continue, that is certainly a concern for staff. But I wouldn't say it's gotten worse in the last 15 years than it has been. It seems fairly consistent in its issues. mainly the deposition. I can't say I've seen an appreciable increase in the down cutting necessarily from where we were before we started the hydrology study even.
Thank you. So this sounds like there could potentially be a discussion update in November, December, or may more likely be, may not be something that rises beyond a normal ad hoc update.
I think that's probably true, but I think we'll know more after Thursday. So
That's good. We'll look forward to an update next month.
mhm. But I do agree about Buckeye Creek. It's been on sort of the list for a long time, and it seems like there should be some agencies around here with some money, like
Thank you.
mhm.
Next up is the master plan review. Would any of the ad hoc members like to take a stab at this? Vice Chair.
Sure. Just that we met 1.1 times, basically. Really just doing an inventory, beginning that effort to look at the master plan and work with staff to determine what's done, what's relevant, and looking at adding to that discussion some prioritization because it is a rather lengthy list. I think we will need a little bit more work in order to get something that could be brought back to the full commission in terms of a status update, and really more of a progress report on sort of where we are with the inventory of projects from the master plan. But I think that would be the agenda topic, would be a report back on the status of those projects. Maybe we want to do a summary level and rather than the full table of items in the plan for the deliverable itself. And I think December would be a really aggressive goal, but it all depends on how our meeting availability can go. But I would say December at the earliest for a formal report back is what I was thinking. And potentially pushing that back to spring if we can't get through the full list.
What do you think about aiming for a discussion item with just general status to bring the full commission up to date in maybe the October timeframe? We need to talk about this more as an ad hoc, but I'm conscious that we're talking about a master plan review and we don't want to do this completely as an entity, as an ad hoc. We want to be sharing with the commission more. We've gotten off to a slow start, but I think we're starting to move forward now with more direction. So I'd like to, as a group, try to see if we can come up with, see if there's something appropriate to share with the commission earlier than December.
Sure. I think we did make a commitment to bring it back. I think every other month was what we initially had planned on. So a discussion item, maybe with the progress so far, we don't need to have the full list done in order to bring it back to the commission to discuss. I just thought that would be simpler, but you're right. More frequent updates is what we did commit to.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to just share with the commission what we're doing, even if it's not a long discussion item. So let's aim tentatively for October, and it could push into November. Any staff input on this?
That one will be a challenge. There's a lot of cross-referencing with other staff on where we're at with different things and what's been accomplished. And glad to do it. It's not really difficult. It just takes time and just needing to pick and choose which ones we want to get done at what time. But yes, I'm very glad to work on that and do my very best to make the October timeframe work.
Thank you. I think one of the important discussions we've had is trying to be mindful about taking on efforts and putting together summaries that it will be useful and actionable as opposed to just doing something for the purpose of accomplishing it. Let's make sure there's a reason for doing what we're doing. Our resources are limited and valuable. So let's be smart about what we're doing. Commissioner Kleinhaus, anything like that? No need specifically. Any questions from other commissioners? Vice Mayor Stone, I'll just reach out to you at this point. Any comments or observations that you'd like to share at this point in the discussion?
No, just appreciate all the work the commission's doing and all these ad hoc committees. I know difficult on a volunteer commission to be able to do this all on your own time outside of the regular meeting. So appreciate all the work you're doing and really excited to hear the follow-up on some of these exciting initiatives.
Thank you, sir. Next up is park dedication FY24. It used to be, I can't look over in that direction. Yes, true enough. It's the vice chair and myself. Go ahead. I'll add.
We've met several times to go over the list of sort of previously discussed park dedication opportunities, really prioritize these very successfully, I think, in terms of looking for some low-hanging fruit opportunities. And I think that we could realistically bring something back to the commission for consideration for some of those top priority park dedication initiatives. I'm looking at Darren, but I'm saying November, December, pending staff availability. And I don't know if we want to include a discussion on the future sites or just leave that as part of our regular update process or background. But that was the timeframe I understood from our meetings.
Yeah, I think we can share what the top priority, the target sites that were recommended by staff and as the best options to pursue. There are two at this point. It's okay to share that.
Yes, correct.
Yes, the Waterwell Park is one of them. And that's the little park off of Alma, across this street from El Camino Park soccer field. There seem to be no concerns from the historical societies at this point. There's mild maintenance concerns in terms of if this becomes dedicated as parkland, does this change who has to take care of it? I don't know if we have any answers on that yet. But as Darren has observed, the city needs to maintain this one way or another. So it should be not be an insurmountable concern. And the second priority site is Rinconada Gardens. There are some concerns regarding some utilities on the northwest corner of the site and the potential future needs for utilities in the vicinity. So we need to work to get some of these concerns sorted out. And those are the the top two on, that's what's rippled to the top of the list. Anything you'd like to add, Darren?
No, I think that's well stated. I think pending on how those few challenges at the Rinconada Garden site go, I think November is a very realistic option to target bringing this to the commission.
And as far as the sequence of the meetings that we would, or sequence and summary of the meetings that we'd need to have, we're thinking we'd have a discussion first and then a recommendation second.
Yes.
A month or two later, potentially, or something like that. So you think, so we're thinking November is good potential for a discussion item. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, next up is the playing field policy and projects ad hoc. This is Commissioner Cribbs, Freeman, and Chair Greenfield.
Well, we have met a number of times, and I think that we should commend Darren for assembling a all-star cast of staff to sit in these meetings and provide opinions and thoughts and all of that. I think through the three of us, we were also able to make some contacts with some pretty important experts in the field, both at Stanford and also at the city and county of San Francisco, who has extensive turf playing fields, about 23 sites, and I don't know how many turf playing fields, and even a special crew of maintenance people who only do turf fields. So next up for us is a tour with some of these folks to kind of look at some of the sites. Obviously, the goal is to avoid some of the issues that we've had in the past with different vendors. The whole scene of artificial turf and that business is described as almost the Wild West, with people coming and going and changing jobs and going out of business and coming into business. And so I think it's really good that this committee and group is meeting. And as I said, Darren's really put together a good team of people. It's been a very enjoyable discussion. I think we have created a list of questions to ask vendors, and we were able to receive from San Francisco the list of questions that they use when they go out to bid, and also some, I thought, very good information on environmental concerns and disposal of the materials when they have to be replaced. So turn that over to you, Nellis, with some additional.
No, those are all very well good comments, and part of this is to make sure we do it right and look at the sort of the long-term maintenance that would be involved. But I think also tapping into some of the institutional knowledge that exists in our surrounding areas and use each other as a resource to make sure that we do in fact do it right. And I guess, I think one of the fortunate things is that we are surrounded by a lot of people who've actually done this before and are willing to share that information as well. So we'll keep collecting information, looking forward to the tour and talking to other people and also working with staff on this.
The focus and the work plan goals of this ad hoc are twofold, and they're fairly separate or disparate. The first task is working with staff on a recommendation for how to move forward with the next generation of synthetic turf field updates. And we have financing for that this fiscal year for El Camino Park, which is in great need of being updated. I'm reminded of this frequently, as recently as Sunday. And the melting of the turf is happening again. And it would be very, very welcome to get this update done. In conferring with staff, essentially we're working with staff on this on a staff decision, and we're helping them and making recommendations as such. Beyond ad hoc updates, I don't think that we need to come to the commission with this as a discussion item. So there's no plan for this ad hoc to meet, to present this calendar year. When we get into the field policy review and potential updates, that absolutely would be something appropriate for to present to the full commission and for the full commission to weigh in on. And so there is no plan for this commission for this ad hoc to come to the commission this year, but will happen sometime, I'd say in late spring or early, or sometime in the spring. Or early spring would be the March meeting. So I think March, April is what we're probably aiming for. Any further comments from staff?
No, just that this is one that I really appreciate the support, having other smart, dedicated people looking at best practices and helping figure out a good choice for the city of Palo Alto.
Any further commission or comments from commission members? Thank you, Darren, and thank you to my fellow commission members on this ad hoc. Next up is the recreation program review ad hoc.
Thanks, Chair. Commissioner Ware isn't here, but I'll be speaking on behalf of both of us. We had a one-on-one meeting, and then we also met with the city staff in charge. Shout out to Kayla, if you're listening. She does a great job in terms of the Enjoy catalog most of the residents receive. Part of the discussions we had with Kayla was to, discuss the gaps that we identified during our meeting, and also to see how best we could find, close the gaps we identified and make our community more inclusive. Because right now we believe that part of the deliverables we'll come up with from the ad hoc would also serve as a resource or a tool for the also for the master plan ad hoc. Part of the things we also discussed was leveraging on untapped resources and opportunities. Part of it was to, find how we could start to make up like a stakeholder list and collate list of volunteers, for example, skilled or experts in their field who, will be willing to provide their own insurance and also go through the city's vetting process or background check. We were hoping that if we can collate that, we'll be able to also find ways to provide free and almost free programs to fill the gaps, because most of the spots fill quickly. Also, the fact that prices of some of the programs are pretty high. I don't think I remember seeing any free programs. So if we open up this opportunity to volunteers, maybe seniors, we identified a couple of target volunteers that we think would be very helpful to provide this, skills or provide, things that might help the city and also fill that gap. Part of the desired outcome for us from that meeting was to start up like an analysis of what we currently have as vendors, what they provide, corresponding services that they currently provide, and also their target audience, and then try to see how we can fill the gaps that we see from our analysis, and then prepare a handover doc of all our findings to the master plan ad hoc team. So that's part of what we plan to do. And our next steps will be to do a deeper dive, and we'll be working with Kayla on that. We have also developed like a walk back schedule And once we have all we plan to do, we would give more updates in our next meeting next month. I wouldn't want to commit to a particular month, but I think it might be wise for us to have it earlier than the time slot that the master plan ad hoc is planning to give like a status update. So most likely might be in November or December.
Thank you, Joy. Were you suggesting that you would like to present at the same time that the master plan update is presented, or before? I wasn't quite clear what you said there.
Yeah, since the deliverable will be to prepare a handover doc, like a summary of our findings, I think it's wiser to present a month before. So that way it gives the master plan more useful data that will be helpful for the master plan ad hoc status updates when they do the presentation.
Okay, and if the initial master plan ad hoc presentation is a discussion item, would it perhaps it would make sense to try to have your update? Are you looking at it having just a single update of your deliverable, or would it be appropriate to have a discussion item as well with the full commission, with what you're preparing and the direction you're going?
I would like to circle back on that with Commissioner Wei. But if I was to speak just on my own, I think it might help to prepare like a summary doc that would be an agenda item. Doesn't have to take, more than half an hour, but I believe, it might be helpful to share with other commissioners on our findings and what our recommended next steps should be.
That sounds good. And so if would that potentially work in the October to November timeframe at the same time that the master plan update would be happening? That you could have a status update presentation, be a discussion item on the direction you're going. Does seem as you're meeting, if you could look to see if that's something that type of time frame would work for you. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if we agreed or bottomed out on the date for the master plan ad hoc update. Was it November?
Where we as most of the other ad hocs have been with the dates, we're not quite sure. October, November, I think is what we're talking about. I'd like to be able to do it in October. That may be more aspirational than realistic, but we'll see.
I don't think that discussion item needs to come after any, I don't think that means that this needs to present in September necessarily. I think there's some to some degree that they're running concurrently. So we could provide that initial discussion update and then have the summary document from this ad hoc following that. And then that could help inform future discussion items for the master plan ad hoc.
Right. I think we're talking about multiple discussions on agendas at multiple meetings. But I do appreciate your desire to have your input provided before the master plan ad hoc wraps up its work for this, that's targeted for this calendar year. Other comments from
I
commissioners?
have a question. You mentioned that there is a difficulty with insurance, if I understood correctly, that the volunteers need to provide their own insurance?
Yes.
Can you explain?
Yes, so when we spoke to the city staff, we asked the question about who would be providing the insurance, and she confirmed that it has to be the volunteer providing their own insurance. And also that the fact that the volunteer would have to be willing to go through a vetting process set up by the city. So that's part of the requirements.
So that puts a huge hurdle in terms of doing the programs that you were hoping to do. Is there any way around that so the city can provide insurance for some of the professionals who want to volunteer in their own scope?
I can take word back and talk to Kayla to see if it's something we could work around. I can discuss that when we have our next meeting.
I work for a nonprofit. We have insurance that we provide for volunteers. Most places require $2 million or more. A person who is just trying to provide, a yoga class in the park is not going to have that kind of insurance. So if the city doesn't, I think the first step would be for the city to potentially find a way to sponsor those things somehow. And I know it's not the only city that is struggling with this. It came up in Mountain View recently. So I don't know if there's any way to do that. That would really make the community more interactive, right? People can offer things, people can join them. If they all have to get their own insurance, I don't see how that happens.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, Joy. Appreciate that.
Sure.
And thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
The last ad hoc, which will be then followed optionally by any liaisons who would like to speak, but the last ad hoc is the Recreation Wellness Center.
Well, we have a great ad hoc committee, first of all, and we were able to schedule a meeting on the 18th of July with Director O'Kane. So Kristen joined us, and she invited to come with her Peter Jensen, which was absolutely wonderful. We were so thrilled to have the meeting. Peter had put together a draft discussion about criteria, but also about siting for the wellness center, AKA the gym. And so based on the conversation with Joy and with Nellis and I, he went back to his drawing board overnight and brought that presentation fortuitously, we had a Friends of the Recreation Wellness Center meeting the next day. And so he brought the presentation to the Friends as well. And everybody was incredibly happy with the work that he had done. In terms of next steps, he is actually checking with a couple of people, but is looking forward to, and this isn't a firm date unless Darren happens to know right now. The 6th of September, a 7 p.m. Zoom for the community. And then on the 9th of September, a walking tour of the site. So to get community input. Based on that, our hope is, and I may be overstepping what I understood, but that we would come back to the full commission in September at our meeting and have a discussion where the goal would be to get the commission and any community who wants to speak, and then get a full unanimous approval to go to the council with that goal to formalize the agreement between the city and the Friends group. So pretty quick, and we are really happy to have Peter involved in what he's doing. Darren, did I miss anything? Do you?
I just want to
Yeah.
clarify, September, that would be a discussion or you're followed by an action later with a recommendation to city council?
Yes, the 6th of September would be a Zoom meeting inviting the community to look at the presentation and make comments.
My question was when you're looking to come back to the Parks and Rec Commission in September, would that be a discussion item or that would be a recommendation, an action to city council?
Well, In a perfect world, it would be a recommendation of an action, but I think that that's too aggressive. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would suggest we probably want an opportunity for discussion before the,
At some point, there needs to be the discussion.
so the discussion, so we're aiming for a discussion in September?
Yes.
Yes, and followed by an action, but potentially later this year.
Mhm.
Are you still looking at Greer Park or has the location changed?
No, the location is various locations in Greer Park, in this draft presentation.
So different locations, all in Greer Park?
In this particular discussion, it is all in Greer Park. If there were to be, as I think we've said in the past, another place that pops up, there's other land attached to perhaps the Ventura project, or perhaps someplace else in the city. Obviously, we would love to look at all of that.
Thank you.
Ellis?
No, that's pretty much what we've talked about, and to just sort of finalize the location and the specific layouts that Peter has done a great job in putting together for us.
Yeah.
And then getting the community feedback from that September 6th meeting, I think it's going to help us kind of shore it up. And so if something comes out of the community meeting that sort of moves us in a different direction, then maybe we have to then pivot and come up with a different plan.
Who gets notified?
Pardon me?
Who gets the notification for this meeting?
For the community meeting? I'm
And are
assuming,
there any
that's a-
signs at Greer Park for users of the park to know about it? Or like, how is this going to be advertised? I'm wondering.
Yeah, so Peter's still online and maybe he could confirm because he hadn't committed yet to those dates. They were still potential or tentative. Maybe he can chime in on that. But the typical notification process is both through websites, updates through the city manager's office, signage in the park, and mailers to the surrounding community is the norm. And maybe Peter's got additional items, but that's the typical ones we utilize.
No, we would definitely use those. Usually we make the mailing area larger than, it'll basically encompass all the neighborhoods around the park. And then we will also be reaching out to all the neighborhood community reps to have a email sent out to everyone basically who belongs to their neighborhood. A emailing list will get a message about the meeting and being able to participate in the meeting. So it will try to get as many community members of Palo Alto there as possible. So
Will there be outreach to stakeholder groups, even I think all sports groups, whether they would be using a gym type facility or not, would be appropriate to include in the outreach list.
Yep. Darren, I'm glad that Peter is still online, and I want to make sure that when I talked about the dates, Peter, I was talking about draft dates and not for sure. So.
Yeah.
Well, yes, the thing that we're doing right now is actually we're reviewing the potential locations in Greer Park with planning to make sure that they are actually 100% potential locations. So they're basically doing that review. I should have more information back this week so we can move forward on solidifying the dates. I would say that right now those dates are probably a little aggressive and they may slip 1 week, but they're basically going to happen. That meeting is sometime at the beginning of September. So
Peter, if the dates do slip, let's say I think last time we did a community outreach, maybe we didn't reach as broader community as we wanted to, but also the timing as to when the notification would go out so that people can, put it on their calendar and be prepared for it.
the notification would have to be decided by the end of the week. So any notification would be able to go out by the first of next week.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We don't want to exclude Joy. Joy, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to appreciate Peter for the quick turnaround, and also making our time to meet with us, and also the Friends of the Wellness Park. I'm glad that things are moving, smoothly, in quotes. I'm happy with what Commissioner Cripps is also doing, steering the ship for us as well. So I shout out to you, Commissioner Cripps and Commissioner Freeman, for the work we're doing so far. I know that I just recently joined the ad hoc, but it's glad to see that things are moving, the way it is at the moment. Thank you.
It's great to hear the progress. It'll be great to be able to pull this into the September meeting.
Mhm.
I will observe we have 5 weeks until the next meeting. So got a little more of a chance, if that helps. Other comments from staff or commission members? Okay, thank you. Let's move on to liaisons. So again, we're looking specifically for, or particularly to hear from any liaison who would like to try to get their group on a Parks and Rec Commission agenda this calendar year. But absolutely happy to hear from anyone in any liaison role, even if you're not looking to get agendized.
So I can start with aquatics if you like, Chair.
Yes, please.
So typically we have an aquatics report in December or January. I think we were a little late last year, but usually we have some sort of report that comes from both the staff and Tim Sheeper. So in the interim, I did check in with Tim about what was going on this summer. And I thought it was a really good report, especially because our newspapers are full of the fact that there is a huge national shortage of lifeguards. And so pools are having to close earlier and not be open because they're just not enough lifeguards, not enough young people wanting to be lifeguards. So Tim is saying that they had great success in filling the lifeguard, camp counselor, and customer service roles. Training the swimming instructors is the biggest challenge because it requires a very special skill to teach people how to swim. And he feels like next year they'll have a bigger base of swim instructors. He wants to do more lessons in the future, and both pool space and qualified instructors are limiting factors. He didn't say this, but there is some discussion in the community about a need for another pool in the south of Palo Alto. So I just thought I'd mention that. He added a summer camp, the Rinconada camp level for 5 to 7-year-olds. And it was very, very, very popular. So that worked out really well. And then through the Beyond Sports, they provided a record number of scholarships for kids who need to learn to swim this year but can't afford the price of lessons. So I was personally really glad to hear that, because I think that learning how to swim is an incredible, important thing to do. We leave so many teenagers and families from drowning. And I think it's a really great thing that our aquatics people are really pushing that and making sure that we have opportunities for kids to learn to swim. So it was a great report. And I'm pretty thankful that we have Tim Sheeper doing the work that he's doing. I think at the beginning, Darren, you remember, it was a little bit of a rocky start, but boy, the fact that we have our pools open and lessons are going on and lifeguards are doing their job and the lap swimmers are swimming and the Rinconada Masters are swimming, I think it's really a really good report. So I would look forward, Chair, to hearing something at the convenience of the staff and all of that.
Thanks, Ann. I think that we've been getting the aquatics report in January or January the past few
About the
years.
same time as the golf report.
Yep, yep. So, absolutely, we would expect to have an annual report sometime
Right.
in the first or second month of.
And actually, I left out one really important thing, if I can add it,
Please.
please. There is new plaster on the big pool, as we call it, and there is also new plaster in the play pool, so that increased the quality of everybody's experience. Pool was closed for a while, but it came in and worked out really well.
That's great. Any questions from other commissioners? Other updates from liaisons? Vice Chair.
Update on dog parks, and Commissioner Krebs, feel free to add anything that I do miss. Been meeting with multiple stakeholder groups, long conversations with the North Palo Alto group on potential locations, as well as conversations with Barron Park stakeholders about strong community interest in a dog park in that neighborhood. We're looking at bringing back a discussion for the full commission, ideally September, pending staff availability to help us summarize where we're at, because there has been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and we want to bring that to the full commission for discussion. Ideally with a recommendation from the ad hoc in terms of next steps. And also an opportunity for those stakeholder groups to speak directly to the commission on their interests and clarification on the city process for, we want a dog park in our neighborhood. How should we go about doing that? So a little bit of status update, education, and just a community forum for this topic. Do you want to add anything?
Not very much. I think that was a really good report. I mean, there are a lot of interested people in dog parks and permanent dog parks and pilot dog parks in the area. And most people have an opinion. Sometimes all the opinions don't agree with each other. And we're looking forward to hearing from the dog community and also celebrating the work that's been done to date on dog parks. So hopefully in September we can do that.
Thank you. Any staff input?
It'd be helpful for staff and liaisons to be again and talk through what that might look like and timing and everything. And Peter offered to join us as well for that one. So good to have his participation as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other ad hoc liaison updates. Ellis.
Sure. I'll give a quick one on the racket sports. I think everyone's interested in what's happening with pickleball and a tennis evaluation. Pickleball seems very happy with its space here at Mitchell. The courts are still always used and typically very full. Adam indicated that he hasn't received any feedback from individual tennis community members. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're happy, but there hasn't been any noise coming out of that level. So, but seems, I think he's probably looking at in about a month or so, doing sort of a survey and seeing kind of how that's going and whether people are still happy with the process. But right now it seems to be working pretty well. It seems to be getting more team requesting to play in Palo Alto. So one of the things you want to look at is possibly looking at maybe to be able to adapt a policy to either require a Palo Alto resident requirement or at least provide a resident a window to reserve prior to non-residents. But that's, that might be a challenge, but it's something that he's willing to look at. There's really
Excuse me, is that for pickleball or tennis?
That's for pickleball.
Thank you.
But he's thinking that's going to require a deeper conversation, try and figure that out. But we're also trying to determine the number of people that might be coming from outside the area and that number being 80%, 20%, whatever it might be. So that's going to require a little bit more information. Also with Mitchell Park out of the equation for USTA match play, you're saying there's not enough tennis courts as they typically need 3 courts. So they haven't been able to fulfill some of the USTA requests for tournaments. And he said he's made more requests for Rinconada and Coverly, but the other is that there's no bathrooms at Gun or Pally on the weekends and the evenings, so they have to pretty much steer clear of those locations. He did indicate that they've received complaints from the neighbors around Rinconada Park, where there appears to be drop-in pickleball play on some of the tennis courts. So that's going to be kind of he said there's only been 1 or 2 incidents where that's happened, that has taken place. So just wanted to make us aware of that. Want to know what do we do is because pickleball is becoming a wider need. A lot more people are asking for courts. So probably going to find there are going to be people dropping in, installing their own sort of portable nets and playing pickleball. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that it is sort of a noisy sport. And so if people are out there playing at 9 or 10 p.m. at night, could create an issue. So but probably it's something we need to kind of keep our fingers on and come up with a resolution for that as we can. Because they will draw complaints. And so need to be aware of that. He did say that they'll be surveying court usage next month, and we'll do that for a couple of months. And then we can go over that information in public meetings, which will then allow for public input. He's also indicated he's gone to some of the local clubs and seems that we are mostly turning away non-residents, but could be worth seeing if they'll do reservations. So part of that is maybe reaching out to some of the more, I guess, private clubs that might have pickleball, but have facilities available that we might be able to tap in and use as a resource. So that's pretty much. Any questions on the racket sports side?
I have just 2 additional comments. One about the Gun and Pally tennis courts that could be used more if we try to extend it. The bathrooms there.
The bathrooms.
If there's a way to work with the district to either open bathrooms or provide porta potties. I know it's a terrible thing to talk, but that could be a solution to use the district courts because they're not being used when the bathrooms aren't open. And the second thing is if we could find out some projected costs for lighting at Coverly of the 6 tennis courts that are down there, whether it's temporary lighting or permanent lighting, and then work with the tennis community to help raise the money to cover the cost of the lights. But we need the cost. So those are 2 additional pieces of our ad hoc work.
Anyone else? We good?
Thank you for all the details. Other commissioners, any comments, questions, staff?
I do have one additional one in golf. So sure.
Go ahead.
Keep going. So golfers are, as far as I think it came up in the last meeting about golfers not really paying attention where they were walking and so forth. So he did say that golfers are being reminded either to check in or start, depending on staff availability of the wetland habitat, and to follow the local course rule on scoring when playing is impacted by the wetlands. Although there are ropes and fencing throughout the course to further aid golfers in identifying wetland habitats, they've installed 40 signs that have been installed in the last week, and advising of the sensitive areas and advising people to keep out. He's also indicated that additional fencing is being added as well. So I did get a time frame on that, but that is something that they are in fact looking at. So that's something that they're monitoring, and it seems like it has been some improvements that they've put up additional signage and have pretty much been advising people about the wetlands and the need to avoid those areas.
What about the negotiations with the water board?
So that one, I believe, I'm trying to remember on the comments on that one, that the water board came back and wants them to still stay with the original plan. And so they're still sort of trying to negotiate with the water board to kind of make some adjustments from what the original plan, I guess there's been some additional vegetation that has grown since that time. And so if Darren, you have anything to add to that?
No, that's the same update I got from LOM, that the request we had sent to the water board to say our consultant is recommending some adjustments that we think may make the whole process smoother and easier and still meet the end objective was not considered. The feeling was that that will not be something that they'll consider at all. And so I think the next step is just to sit down with Brian Wines and say, we'll give you exactly what you want. This is the game plan we have. Does that make sense? And if so, continue down that path. But it hasn't stopped us from the changes we know we need to implement. Those exercise and putting up the signage and the fencing that's been underway, the addressing of the invasive weeds is underway. So we know that has to happen no matter what. So that's going on. And then now the reporting element is what we have to dial in.
What about the that paspalum, whatever, I don't know how to pronounce, that's
You're right.
invading some of the wetlands. What are you doing about that?
Actually, we did not see that invading wetlands. The areas I toured it with you, and I did not see it
There was
invading.
one place that I'm pretty sure we saw that.
I didn't, but maybe I missed it. In either case, that is absolutely part of what has to be done in the analysis by the consultant. And I know he has looked at that. My understanding was he didn't find encroachment, but we'll have to document it too. So there'll be photographic evidence, I imagine, of the different areas where it adjoins the natural area, and we have to ensure that it does not encroach.
And given that a lot of the trees, and that's not part of the wetlands, but the trees are not exactly thriving, and a lot of existing trees died, is there any replacement or additional irrigation to the trees that were planted there, replacement of the ones that died? Are you doing anything about that?
There have been some replacement trees. I don't know to the extent though. And I know what you mean about the trees not thriving there. They never thrived there. I've been working around that golf course for a long time, and the number of trees that would fall every year was enormous. It just seemed like we always had the tree company out taking out a fallen tree because salty soil. And it's always been a little bit of a challenge. But I know they have adjusted some heads to irrigate trees that we thought we could encourage to survive and do better.
Some of the oaks that were planted as part of the reconfiguration were planted on soil that was imported. So I don't know, like if it's the winds with salt in them, but they didn't seem to have grown. And so I don't know if you can just see if giving them more water would work. Because these were like, when you look at the expectations in the plans, it was like, oh, we were going to have at least the same, if not more canopy within a certain amount of years, 15 years. We're not even close. We're losing canopy. So I don't see that goal of the reconfiguration was achieved. And I'm wondering if there is a way to get there.
I think it's something we continue to strive for. I think that's right. And I think taking better care of the trees that we've got there is one step, and adding more where we've got irrigation to keep them alive, make a lot of sense to me. And I think that can be done and probably incorporated into the work we're doing on the wetland mitigation.
Yeah, well, you can't plant them in the wetlands. but
No, we
you
won't
can-
plant them in it, but when we're purchasing wetland plants to fill those areas, I don't see why we couldn't be purchasing a few native trees and putting them in their appropriate spot too.
I just find, that it's disappointing to see that there is a goal in that reconfiguration project in 2014, the goal to improve habitat and the statement that, oh yeah, there is no great loss of trees because this canopy will be replaced within 15 years. And it's almost 15 years and it's, well, not exactly, but we're getting closer and the canopy has not even inched towards that. So, there's a problem in not sticking to the promise.
Yeah.
Okay, one more.
Well, let's mix it up. Let someone else go for it.
Okay,
No,
okay.
You don't have to.
What's the short?
Okay.
Big one.
Can I go?
Yes, please.
I have very quick updates for the youth liaison. Commissioner Way and I had a one-on-one and also met with Christopher Sanchez, who is doing a great job. We talked a little bit about the processes involved and also the priorities for youth. Part of the things that we identified was the fact that we may currently have an area of opportunity to increase public awareness because on an average, we receive like 30 applications for the youth council position or the teenage advisory board positions. But it seems like we may have over between 2,000 to 3,000 high schoolers in Palo Alto. Correct. I'm not too sure about the data, but that's what we discussed. So for us, we feel like it's a great reflection of how many youths may not be aware or may not be, completely informed and involved. We also think there's an area of opportunity to increase the diversity ratio of the youth leaders, because what we've seen over time is most times it's recurring people who keep applying, annually. And I think it's wise if we give opportunity to other students to have access to leadership opportunities before they graduate from high school. Also the fact that we also do not have a limit to the tenure that students, can apply, which, kind of puts a restriction to people who are not already involved to be able to break into being able to serve in the youth council and also the teenage advisory board. Also, we find part of the recommendations we have the fact that using the youth might be an opportunity to open up or to fill the recreation and summer programs and that we earlier talked about, and also to find a way to link the youth council with the age-friendly liaison, because we see a mentorship opportunity there where seniors can also mentor youth, and then youth can, in turn, also mentor younger people in younger demographics. That's the main thing we discussed, and the next steps for us would be to further discuss with Christopher and see how best we can, fill those gaps. A major one that came up was the youth master plan, which I think hasn't been revised recently, I think maybe since 2015. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a long time. And I think that's an area of opportunity that we could also look into. Any questions? I can break and then come back to give more details on the sustainability liaison and the age-friendly, or I can keep going.
Why don't we break? Just mix it up. I'll offer a quick update, very quick. Regarding urban forestry, the urban forestry is looking to come to the Parks Commission with a review of the tree ordinance updates. This is something that's been directed by City Council. The current working plan is to go to Planning and Transportation Commission in September and the Parks and Rec Commission in October. So it's currently being targeted for October. And then another quick update. The Hawthorns stakeholder group is now has been formed and is now meeting. This includes 13 members of the community in various areas and various backgrounds. There was a initial meeting was last month, and on Saturday there's a site tour at the Hawthorne site, which is technically part of Windy Hill Open Space Preserve. This is all managed by Mid-Penn Mid-Peninsula Open Space, MROSD. Come on, I think. General focus is to recommend siting for trails, for parking, for automobile and other access points, and in conjunction with the community. Most of the area is undeveloped at this point. Any questions on any of those items? And that will be my brief segue, and now moving on to someone else. Back to Joy.
Thank you. Commissioner Freeman, do you want to go quickly or? Okay, I'll go then. So for the age-friendly liaison, I had a meeting with Minka, the Senior Community Services Manager, and also Adam Howard, to kind of discuss, the efforts that have been made so far. And it seems like the city staff has done a great job in, steering an active committee made up of, several partnership organizations. But since the pandemic hit, nothing concrete has been done ever since. I think the next step for us was to determine what the next steps would be from the city staff standpoint, because the objective is not to overburden the city staff, but to see how best we can support them. So I'm hoping to get feedback from the city staff on what the next steps are to revive the committee and how best we could move our goal to make our city more age-friendly. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Ellis?
Oh,
Okay, we came into the meeting talking about Coverly. We could leave talking about Coverly. I just want to give an update about where we are with Coverly as far as it in regards to the gems A and B. There, I think, as we heard a while back, there are 3 different invitations for bids for the remediation work and floor repair. The first closed on July 28th, and the bids are being reviewed. The second will be going out late August, and the floor repair will be the last. You can expect that to take approximately 9 months to complete the work. However, that even when the work is done, there will be no heat in the gyms until the HVAC system is replaced. So I guess the city council approved the project for this fiscal year to replace the system, but there's no time frame on it. So if you were to start looking at some dates, you're probably looking about 9 months to a year, maybe, before possibly Gem A and B will be available.
Well, at least 9 months out from now is fairly warm weather.
That's true.
Heat might not be so
That's true.
necessary, and kind of moving into the warm period of time.
Well, that's
So
from
is it-
that's from the time that the bids are received and analyzed. So
I'm speaking optimistically here.
yeah, okay,
I think
that's it for me.
we can all only hope on this one. Thank you. Other updates?
I have just 2 more. Our funding partners, the Recreation Foundation, did not meet this summer. They're looking forward to meeting in September, but they are supporting Adam's programs and providing funds as requested for the chili cook-off and the Mayfay Parade and the traditional things that they've done in the past. The Friends of the Park, according to Roger Smith, he said they were very quiet as well, but they're looking forward to hearing about when they might open a bucket for funding for the skate park. And I think the thought, Darren, is that they would wait until after the traffic parking study is done. But Roger said today he was anxious to see how we could do that, because Sam Kopinski, the young man who came to us with the plans and has been working on that, is now a senior at at Pally. And we'd like to see something happen before he goes off to college. Darren, I don't know whether you have any other skateboard other than we've mentioned already.
No, just the parking analysis being the next
Yeah.
step. I'm looking forward to getting that wrapped up.
Great. Thank you.
Others?
I do,
Joy,
sorry.
sorry.
I have one more thing that Roger Smith wanted me to tell you all, that the Friends of the Park, the board, went to the MSC open house and thought it was absolutely terrific. So kudos to that. That's it.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Chair. Last but not the least, the sustainability liaison. In a bid to, promote sustainability and to help most of all the capital improvement projects we talked about today to be more sustainable, resilient, and equitable, I had started a conversation with the Institute of Sustainability Infrastructure. I will drop a link just in case anyone wants to find out more about them. They're nonprofit, and what they do is they have like criteria lists that most projects go through and to pre-assess themselves. And I see this as a win-win situation for our city, because we'll be able to get free training for our city staff and also be able to get awards, global awards for most of our projects if we qualify. I had a meeting with Jeanette Senna, and we were able to review the pre-assessment criteria list. And part of the things we discussed was the fact that it's something that we could leverage on. Most of the things that we were able to check, we found out that maybe the Ballway Park improvements, the Robles Park improvements, and I think the Mitchell Park Dog Run might be great candidates for getting awards if we're able to see how much of the criteria we're able to meet. So our next steps will be to do like a working session together to go through the pre-assessment checklist and see which projects might come up, or the top three projects that might qualify. And then we could find out if the city is involved in, progressing this further. I had started conversations with the ISI and Vision team before now, and they're happy to give us a free presentation, informational session, or whatever we want to call it. The only snag so far is the fact that they're in the East Coast, so I'm not too sure if a regular monthly meeting might be appropriate. So once we're able to give them potential dates, I'm happy to send that on and also find a preferred time where they can train us or give us more information about the awards and how it can best benefit the city of Palo Alto. Last but not the least, I promise, I also had a meeting with Christine Long, just to discuss, what the city has been doing with regards to sustainability. She shared some of the priorities with me, and the plan is also for us to have a follow-up meeting to see how best I can support the priorities and also see how we can maybe add like corresponding timelines based on my background in sustainability to be able to support and see how we can move or progress that forward. Any questions? Okay, that wraps my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Wanted to go back to the youth liaison discussion. They last presented at the Parks and Rec in September of last year. And I wanted to know if we thought we would want to try to schedule them in sometime this fall or aim for next spring. So that can be an open question to get back to beyond.
Chair, I reached out to Adam Howard just to ask if they would be available this October. It was last October 25th, I think that they presented. And he said he was open to that and would get back to us soon.
Thank you. Any other liaison updates? I know we were winding down here, but this has been very, very informative. And I hopefully agree that this has been time reasonably well spent. Okay. Any other comments from anyone, including our vice mayor? Staff? I want to thank Mike and Peter for hanging out through all of this as well. It's appreciated to have your presence to get your input and hopefully heard something interesting along the way. Next up then is our commissioner / board member questions, comments, announcements, and future agenda discussion, which we've certainly been touching on. Any questions, announcements, or anything anyone would like to share? We've all been doing a lot of sharing this evening, so it's fair enough. Then why don't we talk about agenda for next month?
And Chair, for potential items for September, could be the Foothills Nature Preserve improvements coming back for discussion. And then the dog park may be another option.
And the wellness center potentially as well?
Yeah, potentially.
That would make for a full agenda.
That would be. I think that one's going to be cutting it tight depending on when that public meeting happens and the ability to take the analysis, generate it into a report and have everything in on time. Maybe a stretch, but I think it's worthy of aiming for it.
The meetings aren't as early yet. Thank you. If the meetings aren't early and they need to be pushed back, then I don't think that we'll have enough information to do the September meeting,
Yeah.
although it would be nice if we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's aim for it if we can.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anything else potentially on track for September?
The only one additional one I can think of is if we wanted to push for the park dedication for the one with the least obstacles and just get one through, that seems to be something we could do.
No, would be the water well park. That's something to consider.
Yeah. Since we're starting with a discussion item anyways, we wouldn't go straight into action.
Yes. Yep, good thought. Any other comments, suggestions from everyone? We're still very well on track to be out of here before 10 o'clock this evening. All right, I'll call this meeting to a close. Thank you again very much, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you next month.